Good evening from Los Angeles. Republicans in Congress are playing a very dangerous game of brinksmanship with the vote to raise the debt limit. And now they are getting reckless encouragement from Bush's brain, Karl Rove, the man who helped elect the worst offenders of irresponsible fiscal policy in history. Today, Rove used his column in the Wall Street Journal to advise congressional Republicans on how to leverage the debt limit vote without ever stating the consequences of what would happen if the debt ceiling is not raised. Instead, Rove said that when the members of the Obama administration, quote, warn of catastrophic consequences if the debt ceiling isn't raised, that's just part of their strategy. Rove then said, the adults in the Obama administration understand the debt ceiling must be passed with deficit and spending caps to reassure markets that the U.S. is serious about putting its fiscal house in order. Unfortunately, the adults are few in number, and the politicos run the show. Karl Rove, Politico, is wrong when he says that the markets require anything attached to the debt limit vote. In fact, business leaders are saying the exact opposite. Here's what the president of the National Association of Wholesaler Distributors, Dirk Van Dongen, told The Hill newspaper today. I'm more concerned that it gets done. If we get it done with ornaments, let's get it done. If we can't get it done with ornaments, let's get it done anyway. This is a check-the-box exercise for lawmakers. Even the Chamber of Commerce, which spent $33 million to help elect Republicans in 2010, is now stepping up its efforts to convince the Republicans they helped get elected not to play chicken with the debt limit. The debt ceiling was raised 7 times under the president Karl Rove served, George W. Bush. But Rove says this time is different. A vote to raise the debt ceiling is an acknowledgement of past actions, in this case, Mr. Obama's massive spending since coming to office. Republicans are not to be blamed for Mr. Obama's spending. Rove is right that a vote to raise the debt ceiling is an acknowledgement of past actions, but President Obama told the full story of how we got into this debt position at a town hall in Reno, Nevada today.
We had a surplus a decade ago, but we cut taxes, including for millionaires and billionaires. We fought 2 wars. We created a new prescription drug plan, and we didn't pay for any of it. A lot of folks promised us a free lunch.
As the Bush administration was running up the debt, Vice President Dick Cheney actually said, quote, Reagan taught us deficits don't matter. Joining me now is Dr. Alice Rivlin, who served as the budget director for President Clinton and as the founding director of the Congressional Budget Office. She is also a winner of both the MacArthur Prize and the Moynihan Prize. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Dr. Rivlin.
Glad to be here.
Let's go to that point that Dick Cheney made. He said that Reagan taught us deficits don't matter. When do deficits matter, and when do they, if ever, not matter?
They don't matter if they're temporary, if they're caused by something that is going to go away, like a deficit created by a recession from which you're recovering. But the deficits we're facing now aren't of that sort. They're created by promises made by both parties, Republicans and Democrats, over many years to fund entitlement programs, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, at a time when we have a lot more old people, we have the baby boom generation, and we have a rapidly rising cost of medical care. So the combination of those things means that federal spending is going to go up rapidly over the next couple of decades, and taxes won't, so we will have to borrow more and more money. Now, we can't do that. Nobody's going to lend it to us at anything like the current interest rates. We're going to have to pay more and more. The government will end up spending a lot of your tax revenues on just paying the interest, and we could have a serious debt crisis, meaning at some point we just can't market our bonds or only at very high interest rates, and the economy plunges into a new and deeper recession. That's a big risk. We can't do that.
Dr. Rivlin, I want to draw on your on your expertise in thinking about these things in the ideal form. You're in that unusual situation of having worked in the politics of these issues as a budget director, but you also step back and can look at them from a more academic perspective. If you were not trapped in the political dimensions that we're living in today and trying to figure out how to make these decisions, what would you recommend as the ideal posture that the government take on debt and deficits as we try to work our way out of this recession? If you didn't have to get Republicans to go along with you or Democrats to go along with you, what would you recommend we do, and when would we start it, and what would be the combination of elements that you would use to move us out of the deficit and debt position we're in now?
Well, the answer to when would we start it would be about 10 years ago. But we don't have that option. We're here now, and we have a large and growing debt. I don't think there is an ideal answer. It takes a lot of different things. We have to slow the growth of Medicare and Medicaid because we can't afford to have them go up as fast as they're going over the next few years. We have to put Social Security on a firm foundation so it's there for the next generation or the current generation even. We have to reform our tax code so we can have a fairer, simpler tax code that raises more money. And we have to spend the money that we appropriate every year more wisely and not quite so much of it. So it's going to take all of those things.
Should we be so eager to cut government spending so quickly while we're still trying to work our way out of this recession with such high unemployment rates that are still plaguing this economy?
No, I wouldn't cut quickly or drastically in the next year or so. I think we could freeze government spending, both domestic and defense, without damage. The recovery seems to be taking hold. It's not as fast as any of us want, but I think we can't risk a debt crisis. That would be worse. So we've got to get started on a plan that will reduce the deficits over time, and freezing spending in the near term is one way to do that.
I've been asking people with expertise like yours, what would happen if we failed to raise the debt ceiling on that day that it approaches, where at the strike of midnight we crack through it at the Treasury. And it's not an easy thing because we've never done it. It's one of these scenarios that you have to imagine that we've actually never come close to doing before, because there has never been a significant group of people in the Congress who were actually openly willing to discuss risking not raising the debt ceiling. What would you envision happening in the near term and in the longer term if we somehow get to that point where this brinksmanship actually goes right through that point at midnight on a date certain when we will hit the limit of our debt ceiling and we have not raised it?
Well, the first thing you do when you know you can't pay your bills is stop paying them. So the first thing that would happen was that contractors wouldn't get paid, Social Security recipients wouldn't get their checks, the doctors that do Medicare wouldn't get reimbursed, all of those things. But I think in some ways more serious is that the world would know that we're a deadbeat country. We take on obligations and we don't pay them. And why would you want to lend to a deadbeat country? You wouldn't, or not unless they were willing to pay you astronomical interest rates. So we couldn't borrow anymore, and we would be in the position that some other countries of much less stature than us have gotten into, and it would throw us into a deep recession. Interest rates would be sky high, and we'd be in terrible shape fairly quickly. I don't think any of that's going to happen. Nobody in their right mind would want to have that happen to the U.S. economy, but we shouldn't take the risk. We shouldn't lose the confidence of our creditors, because we're going to need them to lend us some more money, even if we reduce the rate of growth of the debt, and I believe we have to.
I share your feeling in the past, of course, that nobody in their right mind would let this happen, but I don't know who's in their right mind on Capitol Hill, but we are hearing statements coming out of the Congress that we have never before heard about the debt ceiling. We have heard senators talk about they might just filibuster it, and any individual senator could prevent us from raising the debt ceiling on the day that we must do it. You wouldn't have to filibuster it that long to work us past that midnight hour where it becomes the breakdown point. And we have members of the House of Representatives, including Eric Cantor, a leader in the House of Representatives, saying he absolutely will not allow the debt ceiling to be raised without certain conditions being applied to it. That's the kind of talk that we've never heard around this issue before. Do you feel somehow that the institution will take control of all that thinking and the institution of Congress will somehow get this done despite all the new noises we're now hearing about the debt ceiling?
I don't know, obviously, but I think that much of what we're hearing is a negotiating position. It is a threat. Lots of negotiations begin with threats. I'll never sign this. I'll never do that. That's a good opening move in a negotiation because people like Eric Cantor really do want to get spending down, and they want to cut a deal. In the end, I think that the Republicans will vote for raising the debt ceiling, but they may want to exact a price. And starting your negotiation by saying, I won't sign unless you do this, is a pretty good way to get there.
Alice Rivlin, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.